Flip, welcome to the podcast. How are you, my man?
Appreciate you guys for having me on. I'm all is well, man. On this side, tough after a loss today, but I'm ready to rock and roll.
Dude, we are super excited to have you on here. So I'm Stefan, host here with Justin. Yeah, we got a lot to get to, Met fans. Justin, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Flip, we appreciate you coming on to here. I know for us, this is our first time going live on some of our social media platforms. And so people that are listening, right, we hope you guys enjoy. However, as just Flip was just kind of talking about, man, that was a brutal homestand for all Met fans and for Mets organization. That was a tough one to watch. With a record of 1-5, them, getting swept right now by the Athletics and then losing 2 of 3 with Arizona. Currently, we're sitting at 7-9. Losers of 5 straight after this loss today. Gentlemen, how are you feeling?
Dude, it's unbelievable, unbelievable. All right, so yeah, I mean, it's terrible what's going on with this team. We'll get to it, but Flip, one of the things we like to do on the podcast whenever we bring a guest co-host on it, and really that's what our podcast is about. It's about bringing real Met fans into the podcasting experience, doing an episode with us, and feeling what it's like to be behind that microphone with the camera in your face and talking about this team. And one of the things we like to do to start with all of our new guests is what we call amazing beginnings. So it is that guest telling Met fans all about why they're a Met fan. Why did you sign up for this life of misery, which is exactly what it feels like right now?
I mean, for me, look, that was my big inheritance, to be honest. Look, my dad came over to the US in the early 80s, and I was born in 89. And my dad, when he came over, he was a Met fan. So, growing up, that was thrown on to me really. But
So
I've been
no
rocking ever
choice.
since. I didn't have a choice.
No doubt. I love that. Right. And I think that for a lot of us, right, we can all kind of like hit home with that. Parents, right? For me, my mom was a huge Met fan, used to paint her nails blue and orange, used to sit there. And for me, I'm sitting there eating dinner and a Met game was just always on the TV. And so Flip, I hear exactly what you're saying with it just kind of being ingrained in you. I wanted to ask you about your presence on social media. So you've obviously built a really big fan base so far. How did that all start out for you?
I mean, I've been on X since the beginning, since the Twitter days. And how do I put this? Because X could be challenging. You come across some individuals where if you engage, you can say the wrong things and you'll get canceled. You'll get blocked. And I was on X a few years, probably like 4 or 5 years back, and I was going at it with some guy. Point is, I said the wrong things, got blocked off, and I came back to X and I said, you know what? I'm gonna just stick to covering the Mets. I'm not gonna engage on anything else. I'm gonna stick to covering the Mets. And I've seen, over the last few years, I've seen the account gradually growing. But I told myself this offseason, like, we got to take this coverage to the next level. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to do something different. And that's when I did the whole WBC coverage out there, flew out to Miami. And after that coverage, that's when the account began really to take off, and it gained the recognition that I needed the account to gain, or the platform to gain, in order for me to reach a bigger audience.
Yeah, man. So we are brand new, right? We started off with our podcast this off season as well. You got some pretty big recognition from Evan Roberts, right? Like Evan Roberts is talking
That's
about
my guy.
Talking about Master Flip on his podcast, the Rico Bronya, and so I feel like that's a really nice jumping point. Evan Roberts having your back and coming out there and highlighting the good work that you do when it comes to bringing the Spanish content to fans who don't have that, like don't have the ability to understand that. So for you, I know you talked about wanting to grow the presence on social media. You talked about having some goals recently. What are those goals? I know you put it out on your X account. What are your goals for X and for your presence on social media as a whole?
So look, the more my account grows, the more I want to lend that voice and that platform to Met fans who think that they don't have a voice. And the audience that I'm trying to reach really is the Latino audience. I have a ton of individuals who reach out to me via DMs, and I can't sit around answering DMs all the time, but when I do, it's individuals who might be missing out a lot when it comes to Mets coverage, because they have to lean on other individuals, to say another Latin platform that specializes in covering, let's say, Yankees or something else. They'll cover the Mets, but then they'll lean to that platform in order to get their Mets coverage. And so I want to serve as that voice where I'm providing content to that community and bring that community more, so that they know that they have a voice here with the orange and blue.
We love that, and we appreciate that. And it's shown. But like on a day-to-day basis, like for you, like what does it look like to try to get all this content out? Like how are you building on a day-to-day basis your social media?
I mean, my thing is, watch a game. I like to watch on the opposing broadcast often, especially when we got my man Nolan McClain on there, because I'm just, and I used to do this with the DeGrom starts, is I'm interesting to see what the opposition thinks of our guys. And so, the way that I'm putting Mets content across the timeline is, if I'm watching the game and if there's something that I see that it's worth posting a clip, guys in the dugout laughing it up, chirping it up, or whatever the thing is, just bring that content over the top to the timeline. As far as like, additional Mets content, there's a bunch of guys who cover the Mets who, I'm cool with. I'll chat up on the side, and they cover the Mets on IG. I told them, look, anything Mets related, just shoot it my way. I'll make sure I, blast it over to my platform on X, and I'll direct the traffic right back to your, to your IG. So it's one hand washing the other, and really working with these guys who, have access to the team, have access to coverage, have access to content for me to, bring to this audience here on X.
That's fantastic. You're bringing a lot of content. I know you talked about getting to to the Latin audience, to the Spanish community. You're specifically Dominican, right? I don't see you with a lot of like the Mets Dominican flag. I put out a little cartoon that we do for the pod with you holding that. That thing's pretty awesome. When it comes to Dominican baseball, so like we're veer away from the Mets for a little bit. Baseball Aficionado put out a post the other day about MLB investigating the Dominican Republic academies. I don't know if you've done any research into this, but what they're talking about are some of the things that are happening with the Dominican academies. Now, we know the Mets specifically have done a tremendous job getting talent out of the Dominican Republic onto this Mets team. Do you have any thoughts around that? Have you seen any of that stuff? What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I'm not surprised. Obviously, we're talking about, the DR. At the end of the day, it's a third world country. That the Mets have invested in academies overseas in the DR. Obviously, we know we're gonna get some talent out of there. But truth of the matter is, these guys growing up poor, 12, 13 years old. I mean, now you got guys getting deals at 11 years old, 12 years old.
It's crazy.
And so, think about the pressure those kids go through in trying to secure a deal. I'm not surprised that there's a lot that's going on in terms of, some of the stuff on the table that's being brought up to light now.
Yeah, you just talked about how you have 11, 12-year-olds, right? And there are people that are taking advantage of these young kids in a lot of these international like signing periods, right? How do you personally feel about the way that baseball operates with the international signing bonuses and whatnot?
I mean, to sign a kid at 11, 12 years old without knowing what type of kid he's going to project 3, 4 years down the line, it's a little wild to me, it's unfortunate. And again, it just puts baseball in a situation where it's going to be hard to kind of stop these things from continuing to happen, because again, you have scouts out there in the DR who are trying to get kids signed. They're trying to get that bonus.
Right.
They're trying to get paid, you know what I'm saying? And so if there's an opportunity, they're going to take it.
Yeah. Any thoughts on like baseball changing the system instead of being this like signing bonus period that happens where like each team has a pot of money they're allowed to spend and they try to sign these guys as free agents? They're being them either joining the regular minor league draft or like being a separate draft for the Dominican Republic. Any thoughts on something like that? Have you given that any thought?
I haven't given it much thought. As far as it being a separate draft for the Dominican Republic, I mean, you have to include the other Caribbean countries, Venezuela, and the other countries on there. So I don't think DR would get their own separate, draft. It's going to be challenging, but I haven't given it much thought.
Yeah. No doubt. And it's definitely something that we'll see what happens. And unfortunately, like you kind of mentioned before, it's really the kids that are getting taken advantage of. And you saw it with Ronnie Mauricio a couple of years ago, right? He was asked, like, why am I playing in the winter ball? And the answer was essentially he owed a lot of money, or he didn't make a lot of money off his original contract because he got duped, or he got taken advantage of by, whoever it is that kind of guided him when he was younger. And so I think it's a huge issue that baseball definitely needs to address. And a lot of these kids are definitely getting taken advantage of over there.
Yeah, I mean, all right, let's re-navigate back to the Mets, right? This homestand, today's podcast is supposed to be recapping this homestand, and this was dreadful, right? We came out of the Giants series feeling really good. We were on our podcast talking about the Mets, the offense, it's clicking, everything feels great, the pitching looks fantastic, the bullpen looks fantastic, and then we get to this homestand, and it feels like it's falling apart. And I know it's early. I don't want to overreact here. But it does feel like there's something off about this team. Justin, you said it earlier, that they're hard to watch at the moment. Diamondback series, the Mets win the first game, still feeling good. We're on a roll here, 4 games in a row. And then they drop the next 2. Starting with the Luke Weaver game, right? Like Luke Weaver comes into this game. He's been fantastic all year long, and then he just gets smacked around by the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then it continues into the series against Sacramento, Justin.
Yeah, like this homestand was pretty much it felt like it was a Met game on repeat, right? It seemed like it was pretty similar what was going on, whether it was good starting pitching and then our offense just kind of dissipated, or it was, bad starting pitching, the offense sets up a little bit, but the Mets can't get over the hump. And then all of a sudden our bullpen then kind of falls apart. And so, Flip, watching these 6 games on this homestand, right? What are some of your big takeaways, or what are you thinking about the Mets right now currently?
I mean, look, they couldn't get out of New York soon enough. After they came back from the West Coast, we're like, okay, we may be able to stay afloat while Soto's gone. We got a decent record, when Soto went down. And then everything just went south after that Weaver game. And the big thing for me was the decisions and the in-game decisions with Mendoza late in the game, particularly that game when Weaver came in, 7th inning. We're talking about if you're going to bring in your setup man there in the 7th inning, just make sure you have your best defenders out there. And you failed to do that because you had, Brett Beatty there defending late in game. And look, I have much respect for Gary on the broadcast, but, he said something yesterday on the broadcast and I disagreed with it. And it's that he said that it might have been an impossible play. And it was very much a possible play. Why? Because Baseball Savant had that play at a 70% catch probability. And when you factor, there's a lot of factors. You factor in the bad jump, you factor in the speed of the right fielder, and then when you factor in the bad route to ball, I mean, if you watch the replay, you watch Brett Beatty go back on the ball, and then he runs across. You lost 2 or 3 steps there with that ball, a bad route to ball. And if you have an experienced outfielder out there, even with a bad route, the speed alone will cover and make the difference. So absolutely, Brett Beatty cost us that opportunity there to at least get out of the inning because the next guy grounded out to first base. And again, it's inexcusable. If you're gonna go with the group of guys that you got to make work of the 26 like you did in San Fran, where you making work everybody, bringing everybody in late. You failed to do that this homestand, Mendoza.
Yeah, and with that decision, Brett Beatty, that inning before was the last out of that inning, and so it was very possible for the Mets to make a defensive switch in that inning coming up, as Brett Beatty was the last guy out in that inning. And so the Mets should have, in a 1-0 lead in that scenario, the Mets should have been thinking, hey, we got to shore up our defense. We're putting guys in positions that are just not making them successful, right? Like, I'm not blaming Brett Beatty necessarily. The guy has played right field maybe 3 times in his entire career. Even in the minor leagues, he was a left fielder, right, when he was in the outfield. And so, I'm not putting the blame on Brett Beatty. I'm putting the blame on the Mets organization, saying, hey, in tight games, doesn't matter. These guys will figure it out. And what we're seeing early on is that they're not really figuring out. We saw the Mark Vientos in that same exact inning, make a horrible throw to the plate with the infield in. Again, I don't necessarily know if they, even with a good throw, they would have got it. That kid Fernandez was lightning quick, and he got a really good jump off that ball. But it still is just another scenario in which you're just not putting your best foot forward and setting your guys up for success. And I think that, like, as you just kind of mentioned, if the Mets are going to be playing this type of game in which you have guys that are playing out of position, later in those games, you need to be utilizing the 26-man roster to your full capacity.
Yeah, they really easily could have put Brett Beatty at first base and put a real right fielder in right field.
No
Like
doubt.
Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos has been, prior to this series, looking okay at first base. He made a good play in that game, the second game of the series against the Diamondbacks, and then later in the game completely fell apart. And that's what he is, right? Like, he'll make a play look spectacular in the moment, and then the next play it'll be an error for Mark Vientos. That's what it is to be a not very good defender. So as good as he's trying to be, and as good as he's looked to our expectations, which are not very high, Brett Beatty is a better defender than Mark Vientos. So you move him over to first base and you put a quality right fielder, Tyrone Taylor potentially out there in right field, even Carson Bench going back over to right field. You have a better outfielder who knows what they're doing out there and potentially saves this game for the Mets.
Yeah. Now, Flip. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry, buddy.
No, just a comment on that. Look, there's a lot that the Mets could have done there with the Brett Beatty situation. They could have brought in, Tyrone Taylor from left field to switch him over to right, and then put in Jerry Young over left field. Or to your point, Brett Beatty at first base. But look, the word is out. Teams are going to take the extra 90 bases against the Mets, and I saw that the second game against the Diamondbacks when there was a shot down the right field line and Brett Beatty was slow to get to, and it turned into a triple, a stand-up triple. The guys are going to take the extra base. The infield in against Mark Vientos, guys going to run home. Why? Because they're going to force the issue.
Yeah, they're going to expect him to throw the ball away. Make him make a great play.
Yeah, Flip. I know that you've been kind of vocal about this recently with Lindor. You were saying that, hey, Lindor seems like he's off, right? It looks like he needs a day or two. Let's clear his mind. I was thinking today with the Steve Cohen comments that he made in the offseason, right at the beginning of this year or right before the beginning of the year, he announces that when he is going to be this owner, at no point is he ever going to announce a team captain. He doesn't believe in it. He says there's only a few in baseball. Do you think that had an impact on, or is impacting right now, what's going on with Francisco Lindor?
I don't think that necessarily, and good on Steve Cohen to come out and put an end to that, because there's a bigger war on social media that Met fans don't know about. And, there's no right or wrong way for me to put it, but it's a war. It's a Dominican versus Puerto Rican thing. And, if you see this on, the Latin podcast, it's the Dominicans bashing the Puerto Ricans. Oh, we're better with you on this and that and whatever. And then the Puerto Ricans trying to get back at the Dominicans. And, I thought that last year, I thought that having a superstar Dominican and a superstar Puerto Rican was going to be next level. I mean, we had some of that in 2006, right? With those guys, and Beltran, Delgado, and Reyes. And but this, I guess, what I've seen is these podcasters, the narrative that they have pushed is more of, well, this is Soto's team. Well, no, this is Lindor's team. And I think some of that noise has gotten into the dugout and been more of a factor than this whole captain stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. The thought I had, honestly, was around the WBC and him not being able to represent Team Puerto Rico. Like, that thought has been in my head recently a lot also, because Francisco Lindor was so gung-ho about being the captain of Team Puerto Rico and going out there and playing for his team. So much so that when he couldn't, there were people coming at him when they didn't understand, like, why couldn't he play, saying, like, well, how could you not play? And his wife put out something along the lines of, like, you don't think this hurts him? You don't think that he's emotionally distraught about this? And to describe yourself as being emotionally distraught about it, he's clearly impacted by something, right? We all have different ideas of what that something could be. At the end of the day, there's something wrong with Francisco Lindor. And to me, it's about what Carlos Mendoza is going to do about it, right? Carlos Mendoza is the only person with the power to fix this right now, besides Lindor, right? Lindor clearly has something wrong with himself where he needs to refocus on the game of baseball. His head's not in it. But as the manager of this team, you need to do something to make him realize how serious this is. And it's not one thing where he's making a mistake. There's multiple mistakes being made every single game, and it's compounding upon each other. It's clearly getting into his head, and ultimately, something's got to be done.
Look, the issue I have with that is, all right, fool me one, shame on you, right? So he forgot how many outs
Yep.
The last time there in St. Louis. All right, whatever. Slap in the wrist, right? You're a veteran guy. You get a slap in the wrist. Then you get picked off at second base. Then the other night, you throw flat footed, you lollipop to throw second base. Then yesterday, you know what happened yesterday? Lindor didn't go
Cover second base.
Francisco Lindor forgot how many outs there were in the ball game yesterday.
Again.
Again, no, it hasn't been said, but I'll be the first one to say it. Francisco Lindor forgot how many outs there were in the ball game yesterday. It was a first and third situation. It was a routine ground ball to second base. This is not a ground ball in the short where the second baseman has to go into the hole and backhand the ball. This is a ground ball to second base with the second baseman corral the ball in front of him. This is an easy flip to second, and Lindor is backing up the second baseman. Why are you backing up the second baseman? Why? Because you thought there were 2 outs in the inning. It's inexcusable. And what's upsetting is that Mendoza acknowledges that there's something weird, and that's his choice of word. You said, Mendoza, there's something weird with Francisco Lindor. We know it. Guys in the post game are saying it. Fans are saying it. Guys who are going out there and spending their hard-earned money seeing Francisco Lindor with these mental lapses day in and day out see it. And yet you choose to just write his name out on the lineup card. You need Francisco Lindor there next to you in the bench just watching. You know why? Because you need to show me, Mendoza, that you got control of this team. And right now, you're showing me you don't have control of this team.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, right? It is essentially the $32 million man making the decisions on whether or not he's going to play or not play, and it's not the manager that's making that decision. I mean, you had first and third, no out, and he got picked off at third base. Like that was an inning killer. It is just what's happening is something I've never seen with Francisco Lindor in the 5 years that he has been here. We've had his early struggles, his early slumps, right? That is something that I don't think any Met fan is discouraged with, but I am discouraged by seeing the mental mistakes that are going on and the consistent mental mistakes that have been going on with Francisco Lindor over the first 15 games. I mean, the guy has 0 RBIs currently right now. That is unfathomable and something that for a lot of us, right, it is every single time he's up in a big spot. I used to be confident in it. Right now, I don't know if I have that confidence in Francisco Lindor. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, he doesn't have the confidence in himself. And if he doesn't have the confidence in himself, how can the manager trust him to go out there every single day and bat him leadoff, right? Maybe Mendoza has it in his head that I can't send that message to Lindor. He can't handle it, whatever the case may be. You need to move him down in the lineup. You need to do something to send this guy a message that what he's doing is unacceptable. Otherwise, I agree with you, Flip. It shows you have a lack of control of this team. To me, and my big takeaway from this entire homestand is that Carlos Mendoza is showing us that he's not a guy that inspires players. And the manager's job, most of the analytics is done for you. You've got coaches around you that do a lot of the grunt work to prepare guys to play every single day. The biggest job you have, in my opinion, as the manager of a professional baseball team is to motivate those players, to inspire them to reach their full potential. And he is not doing that. And it's not Francisco Lindor alone. It's many guys in this lineup are not producing to their level. And this is now for a year, and for almost a year, right? This is dating back to the second half of last year, and it's carrying over now with a completely different group of guys. You know what the one consistent thing is? It's Carlos Mendoza. Everybody else is gone. All these other guys are gone. Players are gone. Coaches are gone. Carlos Mendoza is still here, and this team is still playing with a lack of passion for the game. And to me, that comes from the manager. If you don't have an ability to do that for these guys, then we've got to make a change here. Again, it is early in the season. Losing 5 games in a row feels like crap, and that's exactly why we're all speaking the way that we're speaking in this moment. But Carlos Mendoza this is a track record at this point that you're showing Met fans. So you're showing these guys in the locker room, more importantly than us. You're showing the guys in the locker room that you are not inspiring them. And if this continues for much longer, forget changing Francisco Lindor and getting him out of the lineup. The Mets need to consider changing Carlos Mendoza.
I can't disagree with that. And look, I'm rooting for Mendoza all the way. Mendoza is one of 6 Latin managers in baseball. And, I'm rooting for my guy all the way. But to your point, you got to show me like you're in control, my man. And to show me that you're in control is not showing me that you can manage the rookies. It's how you manage the veterans. It's how you manage the Sotos of the world. It's how you manage the Francisco Lindors of the world. I mean, look, last year, he gave Soto a day off right before the Yankees series. Remember that against the Pirates? We lost that game. but
Yeah,
it
that's
came
something that,
it came at that expense. We're gonna give Soto the day off because he has a big a return back home with the Yankees. The Dodgers did 8 games into the season. They gave Kyle Tucker a day off. So if a guy that just signed a record-setting deal can take a day off with a new team, why can't a guy who has 0 RBIs through 15 going into the game, 16 games into the season, 15 games going into today, 0 RBIs, he can't take a day off, at least move him out the leadoff spot, and with the mental lapses day in and day out. You're not showing me, Mendoza, that you're holding guys accountable, because what kind of message does that send the younger guys?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to jump into Peterson right now, David Peterson. So David Peterson's obviously got to start tomorrow against the Dodgers, but Sean Manaea, who was bashed all off season, especially during spring training, his velocity was down. He obviously started off in the bullpen, but I got to say he's pitched pretty well so to start this season. I mean, is this something that Mendoza and the Mets should be considering right now? Is Sean Manaea in the rotation?
I mean, how much confidence do you have in an 88-mile-an-hour Manaea fastball? I guess that's what it comes down to.
Hey, he hit 91 today, guys.
It's getting there, but I mean, Peterson hasn't been all that well, either. But Manaea scares me, man. Manaea scares. Just thinking about Manaea versus a Shohei Ohtani type matchup. 88-mile-an-hour BP fastball.
Well,
I don't know.
I'll tell you right. I'll probably right now. Peterson at 90 is about to face him tomorrow night. So it's pretty much going to be pretty similar to what Sean Manaea is going to be giving you. That is something that I think is going to. David Stearns came out on Friday and talked about how he expects Sean Manaea to get 25 to 27 starts this year still. And so the math is saying that if you want to get 25 starts for Sean Manaea for the rest of this year, Sean Manaea is going to be inserted into this rotation pretty quickly.
I mean, we might see a 6-man rotation soon. We saw Senga on, regular rest. His velocity wasn't even there, and so it might come to a time where you may have to consider a 6-man rotation.
Yeah, so Manaea pitched really well today. I'll give him that. I'm surprised that he came into the game. I'm surprised that they didn't wait for tomorrow, right? Like they could have. They could have used someone for tomorrow, have Manaea ready to go in case Peterson blows up. And then at that point, Manaea's in the rotation. Peterson gets moved on. We just actually had someone, Armand, in the chat say, I say move Peterson to the bullpen and call up Christian Scott for the rotation. And there are guys waiting in the wings, right? Like that's the point in that comment. There are guys waiting in the wings behind David Peterson that if he doesn't show us something against the Dodgers tomorrow, his job is on the line here. He's going to be moved to that bullpen, whether he likes it or not. And so David Peterson, this is the moment, right? And I do think there's something to be said about going to LA against the defending champions and playing up to the competition. We see often with this Mets team for years, I've always said that the Mets play down to the competition, right? When we're a really good team, we somehow lose to the Miami Marlins when they're terrible. This is an opportunity for the Mets to play up to the competition, for David Peterson to turn around his season and change the narrative that we all have as people who come out here and talk about the Mets publicly because we're bashing the guy. Tomorrow's a chance for them to change things. Yeah.
Well, in order for the Mets to change anything, the offense needs to figure this out, right? And so my question to you, gentlemen, is that last year, the offense, it went through its ebbs and flows, right? It has struggled at times. But what I knew was that the guys in that lineup eventually were going to produce, and they were going to give, and the Mets were going to score, high 4s, low 5s, runs per game. I don't know what this offense looks like this year. Obviously, with all these new moving pieces, all these new additions going on here, are we still confident that this offense is going to figure it out by the end of this year?
I mean, you have too much capable guys in that lineup. I mean, Lindor and Polanco. What is it? 2 or 3 RBIs?
Yeah,
combined
in
in 16 games. So those guys are going to be much better than that. But I guess and these guys, look, not to put in excuses, but these guys didn't have much of a spring together, right? So we're still trying to figure out, where does Polanco fit best in this lineup? Where does Reese Robert fit best in this lineup? When Soto comes back, and Lindor, where do those guys fit best in the lineup? And once Mendoza figures that out, when we go with a stable lineup, because what I've seen these last few days is Mendoza hit randomize on the lineup card and just throw up, a different lineup every single day. And so, he's just going to have to go with one set lineup when everybody's healthy and just ride that out.
Well, yeah, we got to make
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think he went on ChatGPT and was like, "Hey, can you create a lineup for me using these guys?" Right? Oh, Jared Young, you're gonna bat third. That sounds great. Let's go with that one. All right, he's got a 900 OPS. He must be legit.
Yeah, he must be. We got to get Carlos Mendoza listening to you though, because your idea right now for what you would change with this lineup to jumpstart it. We talked about Lindor not being in it. That's just the day off though. Who's the guy that you would bat lead off? I know you put it out on X. What are your thoughts?
Right now it's Luis Robert Jr. I mean, he was leading the league in on base percentage a few nights ago, right? And so you want that type of guy who can get on base, who can steal a second, steal a base, take the extra 90 feet. When you got a guy, in Bo Bichette maybe hitting behind him, who could probably drive him in, who's a leader with runners in scoring position in the last few years. So that combination alone, especially with a Soto out of the lineup, you need that 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I love that. When I was first like putting together this lineup in the offseason, I honestly had Luis Robert batting ninth as a second leadoff guy with Lindor obviously still in the one hole. And because the same concept as you're saying, I think that is a guy that is essentially a leadoff hitter that can get on base. He can steal bases. We saw his OPS has been great this year so far. But they really have to change something up, especially with Soto out of this lineup. There's essentially piecing things together, and the piecing together is just not really working out right now.
Well, there's just no one scary. With Soto out of this lineup, there's no one scary in this lineup in the middle bottom of this order, right? You get past Bo Bichette, and you're like, okay, cool, we're cruising now until we get back to Francisco Lindor, who we all hope is going to turn things around. We all know is going to turn things around. I was with you, Justin, with Luis Robert batting 9 at the beginning of the season, talking about taking the pressure off of him and all of that stuff. I'm not with that anymore. I want this guy getting as many at bats as possible. And so 1 does that, right? 1 in the lineup, 2 in the lineup gets him more at bats than 9 is. He's probably going to miss out if you bat him 9 on an extra 100 or so at bats over the course of an entire season. Plus, we know that Carlos Mendoza plans on giving him days off. I don't think Carlos Mendoza can afford to do that right now because he's been so good. Yeah. Other big takeaways, guys. I gotta come on here and I gotta talk about it. Our last episode we did from I was in a hotel place, like a room, like a business center at a hotel, and I didn't have it, but I have it right now. Where is it? Mark Vientos, right? Here's my dude. I literally said if I had Mark Vientos with me, I'd be knocking his head, I'd be bobbling it, because this is the one guy that I've gone to bat for on this podcast since we started. I love Mark Vientos, and I think there's so much talent that he has, and he showed it in the Giants series. But dude, what is happening? 0 for 19. That's the stat on this homestand. He does not have a single hit. How could you go from being that hot, from being the guy carrying this team, to 0 for 19 on the homestand? What is happening with Mark Vientos? And is this the player that he is, or is the Giants the guy we saw in San Francisco the player that he is?
We're just gonna have to give him. It sucks to say, but we're just gonna have to give him as many ropes to find out who is the true Mark Vientos. Is the Giants one, or is it the one we saw this homestand?
Yeah, and I mean he's going to have the opportunity with that Soto injury, right? Obviously Polanco right now is still nursing that Achilles, so he's not really playing a lot of the field. I think Mark Vientos, when he gets home though, he starts getting a lot of pressure, right? And I think that for like when you see him like out on the road, I think that is who Mark Vientos really is. And all of a sudden, when he gets home, it looks like he turns into a different player. He starts chasing the ball again, right? He's trying to overdo it. He is trying to prove to Met fans that he's a legit bat, and I think that is some of the issues in Mark Vientos. I don't think it's the talent. I think it's the mental side of baseball for Vientos personally.
We just had Tony Havoc in the chat say the New York fan base scares him.
It very much will be, right? Like I'm kind of with Tony on that. It possibly can be. And so if that is the case, Met fans, we got to be out there. We got to be supporting our guy, because Mark Vientos, in order for this team to be actual deep right lineup, Mark Vientos can be a big part of it, and he needs to be, especially with Soto on the shelf.
I wouldn't say that the New York fan base scare him. He did something this homestand that it was encouraging to see, and it gave me the confirmation that Mark Vientos is out there having fun, right? And it was that pop-up play where he dropped the ball that he was hearing the boos.
Yeah.
And he catches it, the same at bat, he catches a pop-up, and he gets a standing ove. So, and he was there, pumping up the fans, hyping them up, and so that told me my man is out there having fun. So
yeah,
we just need the hits to start coming.
Yeah, I want to see that energy with the rest of the guys. Like this fan base right now is not behind this team at the moment, right? It's hard to be behind them. The Met players need to be out there doing something that Brandon Nimmo did every time he got behind a microphone. Was celebrating the Met fans for coming out and supporting and being there with them and showing the love back to the Met fans. And that's what Mark Vientos did in that moment, right? He said, I know you're booing me. I deserve to be booed. I should have caught that ball. But I'm with you guys. Throw my hands in the air. Let's celebrate, right? Like, I made the play, guys. Ha ha. Like, I can do this. And that's what I think this team needs to do is, like, Mark might be playing in that moment with a little bit of fun in the game. I feel like without Soto in that dugout, we saw so much fun from Soto in the dugout in spring and at the beginning of the season that they're missing that because Lindor's pressing. He's not looking like the fun, energetic, big, smiley Lindor that we're accustomed to. Someone's got to step up. We had all of these guys who came in that are supposed to be leaders. Marcus Simeon's supposed to be a leader, but he's the quiet type. Bo Bichette is a guy that does his job every single day, right? Jorge Polanco does his thing. Freddie Peralta, who I know you met, right, is one of the leaders of this team. Somebody's got to bring joy to these guys because that's what this game is supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun.
I mean, that's what they brought in JD Martinez for. You know, they're missing something in the dugout, the clubhouse. They need a hype man. I mean, if you need a hype man, let me know, Steve Cohen. I'll pull up. I'll be in there with the, with the boombox hyping the guys up. But they need something. They need something to click in there, and they need it fast.
For sure. All right, guys. So, any other guys? Flip, is there anyone else that you feel like Met fans right now need to be talking about? Is there something that we've missed on this podcast? You're like, hey, I got to get this out. I got to talk about it.
Off the cuff, I'm not sure. I think we covered a lot.
I'll tell you right now, Luke Weaver, man. Right, what has happened to our boy Luke Weaver over the last 2 outings? It's not like he's letting up like an earned run. I mean, the guy let up. I think his back-to-back relief appearances 4 earned runs. I when I watch Luke Weaver, I feel like his stuff has diminished a little bit for some reason, right? I feel like at the beginning of the year, he was between 93 to 95 on his fastball. And then recently, I've seen him more at like 91 to 93. So I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's got a little bit of fatigue. I'm not sure what's going on with Luke Weaver, but that is someone that, you kind of mentioned before as a setup man, he's really important to this team, and he's really important to this bullpen. A bad Luke Weaver, the Mets are really going to struggle, especially in that bullpen aspect.
I will say this, and props to him because there was a lot of, scare coming in. The guy that replaced Edwin Diaz, Devin Williams, hasn't given up an earned run this year, he's outpitched Edwin Diaz in the closer role so far this year. And so, but at least we know that we got a good lockdown man there in the back end.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I like to see Raley take over that setup role at this moment. Like, he's been lights out for us. I'd like to see him be the guy that's setting up. Luke Weaver's tanked his last 2 outings, so I'm with you, Justin. It definitely needs to be talked about. I think the defense overshadowed it a little bit for Luke Weaver, but I was at 2 games this homestand, and Luke Weaver happened to blow both of them, so that sucked. The one thing that is something that is a positive that we should all be looking forward to is Juan Soto said that he's looking to be back for the next homestand. So we were just a couple of games away, hopefully, from Juan Soto being back with this club and being back in the lineup.
Can't come back any sooner, Juan Soto.
It's crazy, right? Like last year, how many Met fans bashed Juan Soto for the start that he got off to? And the fact that you don't have him right now, it just shows you what a difference that player is in this lineup and how good he actually is. And like you just said, Flip, like he can't come back fast enough, to be honest with you. Listen, I'm not saying he should come back not healthy, right? Because I think that type of injury, right, it can linger, okay, that calf injury. But, Juan Soto, whenever he is healthy, he needs to be back in this lineup because like Stefan mentioned earlier in this podcast, no one is scary right now, right? Like there is no one that an opposing pitcher is saying, oh, man, I really don't want to face this guy right now. And so Juan Soto is that type of guy and will continue to be that type of guy for sure.
Absolutely, man. It's the no pop Mets. There's nobody to be feared here. We need somebody who can provide instant offense, and that's what Juan Soto is.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Before we project the upcoming series, I'll close out with this for you guys. Is anybody actually worried about this team, or do we believe in this team? Do we believe this team is going to turn it around?
I think it's early. I mean, if we look around the league, like the Yankees have a 5-game losing streak, and I don't want to say, well, the Yankees are, we should know, but it's still fairly early on in the season. And as I said before, this team collectively didn't get much of a spring training, at least together, and to kind of build that vibe and momentum. So, just give them a month or two before we begin to press that panic button.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not worried about it, right? It is uninspiring baseball. It's hard to watch right now. I think it's going to be good that the Mets get out of Citi Field again and they can get on a road trip, because for whatever is going on right now in Citi Field, the vibes are just not where they need to be at the beginning of this season. And so I'm not worried. But listen, they need to start playing better baseball, right? And the mental mistakes needs to stop. You guys are professional athletes. That's the type of stuff that really bothers me. You going 0 for 4, that happens. You not knowing how many outs are in an inning, that's unacceptable, right? You are a professional. You're getting paid a lot of money. Someone that has been a veteran on this team, someone who is viewing himself as a captain, that's the type of stuff that I can't accept.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It's hard to look past some of those things, but it is early, right? And the one person that I think is on the hot seat isn't the players, it's the manager, right? He's got to figure out how to inspire these guys. So I'll stick with that narrative, but it is early. I do believe that many of these guys will play to the back of their baseball cards, and so hopefully this road trip gets the Mets going. The Mets' upcoming road trip is 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Cubs, and they have not put out their rotation all the way beyond the next 2 starts. So we got David Peterson going tomorrow. Nolan McLean is going up against Yamamoto in the next game, and then the Mets have not listed who their projected starters are going to be beyond that. So we'll see what they end up doing. Maybe this is the spot where they insert another starter here, whether that's going to be Sean Manaea. Someone said in the chat earlier, Armand said in the chat, Christian Scott potentially could be getting a spot here in the lineup. So we'll look forward to seeing what the Mets are going to do here. But I Flip, you said it earlier. Kodai Senga on regular rest did not look good this time around, so maybe the Mets have made a decision here. For what it's worth, his start right before that was on regular rest, and he did just fine.
Yeah, I think it's the home situation, right? It's the unclarity of what's going on with Holmes and the hamstring. I think that's why right now it's to be determined. What I heard today, though, is that he is still aiming to throw on Wednesday, Holmes. Whatever the tweak was with his hamstring wasn't that severe. He kind of just, maybe it was a cramp going on in that start. But I think it should be Clay Holmes that should be starting that 3rd game. And maybe that why it's not officially announced is because of that injury that happened with his last start when he took himself out. So, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, this is gonna be a tough series, right? Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I will say though, the Mets have been pretty successful going to Dodger Stadium. I believe since 2021, the Mets have either tied or have won every single series since 2021 going to Dodger Stadium. And so, in the regular season. And so, for the Mets, this has got to be a turnaround. You got to be playing up to your competition. And it starts with Peterson. Peterson last year, I know, threw a really good game against the Dodgers. And so that's something that we definitely need to have happen again.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. Flip, we appreciate having you on the podcast with us, man. You were fantastic. You were awesome. We hope you join us again. You're welcome to join us at any point in time. So appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys.
Flip, it was a pleasure, man. We really appreciate you coming on. You obviously have our login now. I'm sure you'll be just posting random podcasts on our stream, and we'd appreciate that. So we'll take it.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, man. You have a good night.
We just had Carlos jump on, guys, and say something. I thought Lindor would have stepped out with Soto down. I think Cohen not naming him captain messed with his head. So, Carlos, we did address that earlier on. This stream is going to be available for everybody to watch. Met fans who logged in and participated in this with us, we truly appreciate you guys. Our first experience ever going live. So, Flip, thank you for pushing us to do that. This was a fantastic experience. Continue to follow, like, and subscribe. Love you, Met fans. We want to get you guys on here just like we got Flip on here with us today. You guys have that opportunity to come on. Just hit us up on any of our social medias, and we're happy to have Met fans come on here and tell their stories as well.